Yeah, so thanks everybody for being here. My name is Austin Glass. As Missy mentioned, I'm a director of photography based out of Seattle area for now. We'll see what the future holds. I've done a lot of work in virtual production over the last few years. I wanted to share some of my experiences with you, and we're specifically talking about practical sets today, which I find to be incredibly fun. We can do stuff where there's very, very little practical sets and it looks amazing. We can do stuff where there's massive practical sets, also looks amazing. So I kind of want to talk more about the latter. Wait, did I say that right? The former or the latter? The latter. More sets. Thanks, Pete. So let me talk a little bit about myself, and then I'll show you guys a quick little sizzle reel that shows some of the virtual production work I've done over the last couple of years. So first of all, my first virtual production project was in 2020, in the summertime. It was a little bit rocky, but we were figuring things out back then. It was very informative and a good starting point for us to kind of build upon from there. In that time, I'd done more than 24 projects as the DP, several more as a consultant type of a role. And I helped to build 3 different LED walls in different configurations and all that stuff. So the assembly process is a little complicated, but I've got some experience doing that as well. And then last year I shot a national ad campaign using primarily virtual production technology. And that was this is a pretty exciting time. I will show you some clips from that as well. We can talk about some of the sets that we built for that. So this first up is a little sizzle video. It should be about a minute. Let's see. All right, so some of the projects that were in that sizzle were, I mentioned the national campaign that we did, and then there were some also some test shoots and some other client work as well. If anyone saw my presentation yesterday, some of that stuff I talked about, but I have a few more projects in here that I wanted to quickly go over that had used some of those sets. So the first one, I'll just let this play and talk over it, but this was part of that campaign. We have our actors here with a real car in front of them, and then we want to take note of some of the things in the background. Like all that stuff back there is part of the virtual, but then these toolboxes back here, these are real, and so is that engine stand over there. But the key is, one of the things that we always want to make sure that we're doing whenever we're doing a project in virtual production is our job is to blend our environments. We have things that are real and we have things that are not. And if we don't put our effort forward, it will be obvious to many of our viewers that something's not quite real or something's a little bit uncanny about it. So we have to pay attention to the details. So some of those details involve kind of what's in our background should look similar to what's in our foreground. So that all starts with production design. This was from that project. We had found this reference image online just from a regular internet search. We said, we want our garage to look something like this. So we started here, and then from there, our artist did a previs image using a mock-up in Blender, kind of based off of that. We knew we wanted lots of natural light, or, well, simulated natural light. So we gave ourselves a lot of garage door openings. And then we overlay our LED wall down here so that we can see where our reality is and where our artificial world is. Because, again, it's important for us to notate the difference. The geography of what happens in the virtual production space is more important than it seems. If we have something like we do in this tool chest here, you can see it's piercing through the mesh of where the LED wall is. Technically, that might look okay on camera, but that would be the first thing to fall apart in our illusion, because we have something virtual that's not supposed to be there, where it is. That's a pretty minor encroachment, so we probably got away with that, or we might have moved that just a little bit. But ideally, you're going to move all those virtual props back to where they don't exist in the real space. The LED wall will project those objects for you, but the way the camera sees them, they might not have the correct depth of field or other lens characteristics. Something about them might not seem real. And then this is from our behind the scenes from our real set. So we have the car, as I mentioned. There's some tires back there. I think the next slide might show a little bit better. We have our toolboxes there. And so we're just kind of creatively placing objects to give our midground a little bit more support. Foreground looks great. We got the car, we got the people. Midground is the toolboxes. That's something that just helps us to kind of sell the parallax a little bit, make the space feel real and full. And then our background, of course, we have that stingray in the background, and then all the walls and everything over there is all virtual, obviously. So we're blending them all. One of the things we have to make sure to do is that we want to make sure that our light also matches as close as possible. So in this case, we had sort of dictated our sunlight direction was coming from, up far over there this way into our scene. So we had that reflected, reflected is the wrong word, but we had that shown in the virtual space. The light was the same. And then for all of our foreground stuff, we hit it with a similar light direction so that everything feels real. Oh, I lost my connection to my, oh, there we go. It's just a little wider shot of the same thing. And then this is just a little background video, or a BTS video I found showing a little bit better of the space. But I think you get the idea. The next one I'm going to show is, you'll have to forgive me, it's a little bit, the quality of this video is a little bit crunchy. I couldn't find the source in all my archives. But this one has a lot of production design. And then I want to ask you guys where you think the line is between what's real and what's not. So I'll just let this play for a moment. There won't be any sound. One moment. Oh, well, I guess you guys know now how that worked. I'm having some technical problems. Sorry about that. There it goes. Okay, so I showed you the behind-the-scenes picture on accident, so I think you know now. But this wall right here, this is the last real thing in the scene. Everything back there, that rug to the fireplace to this library back here, all that stuff is part of the virtual set. This particular set was pretty expansive. This was for a fundraiser event that aired as a regional spot. But there was a substantial amount of production design that went into that one. So we can take a closer look at our behind the scenes here. This was a two-part spot, so we just built our sets conjoining. They didn't need to be that way, but it was just, it saved space and time to have them close together. Obviously, that's not our library background. We were testing a different one at the time, but you can see all that's real. We have a full 3-wall set with a big French door opening. You know, all of this very nice propage, very good looking stuff. And lighting that was very fun. You can see we have a lot going on. You know, that was necessary to get that kind of that warm, you know, kind of that very like a lavish sort of a library, like a private, you know, den type of a space. And then, yeah, sorry, a little wider shot of the same thing. So that shows us a lot of production design. I do want to cover what it looks like to have very little. This was actually part of a capabilities test shoot that we did. We were testing the way that we could trigger animations on our virtual background. So we just found a way to make something that we thought looked cool that didn't involve really any practical stuff because it was much easier for us to pull off. So it's literally just the actors and the things in their hands. That's all. And I thought it was pretty convincing in the end. The next thing I want to talk about is something I'm kind of proud of. We came up with this fancy little, I call it the step. So we used it in a couple of spots in this ad campaign. So we have the step down here is real, this bottom step, and then the next one is virtual. And if you looked at the geography of the space, the rise of the virtual step is literally right up against where the representation of the LED wall is. It's like it goes right up against it. Now, does anyone know why we have a step there? Why did we feel the need to put a step there? Does anyone have any ideas as to why we did that? Except for Wolfie. He already knows. Sure, Jamie. A footer, right. Thank you. So the wall that we're looking at this on right here, it's hung from above. You can see these supports up here. When the wall is hung from above, you can get it very, very low to the floor of your studio. In our case, we were not able to rig from above. So when we assembled this wall, we had a footer support underneath the whole thing. It's about 6 inches tall. So what that means is when we're designing our practical sets, we know what our shots are, and we know that however we're framing our shots, depending on how wide we're going and where in the space that the talent is, we will need to do something about that footer. So in this case, I thought, hey, what if we built a little step and made it look like concrete? Because our floor is concrete, and our virtual set can have concrete floors. That would look nice. So that's what we did, and I think it worked pretty well. And in fact, this one, we built the step for that other scene with the workout room. That's what it was built for, and we shot that first. When we were setting up the next scene in that artist loft, I said, hey, what if we put our step in there? And so the Unreal artist went to the other scene to go import that concrete element that he had built, and then he brought it into that artist loft scene and then raised the whole geography of the space up a little bit so it looked right. And then we put our step down, and I was like, that was perfect. We were going to try to hide that footer using different methods, but this way was way better. So anyway, I'm kind of proud of that. I'll show you the, this is that spot. You can see the wide shots showing that footer here when she walks past. So yeah, this was one of those clever little things. Oh yeah, I'll talk about the foreground elements here. You know, obviously we have this big wall here and everything in front of that. So this beam right here, and then everything in front of that is real. Again, we're respecting, our job is to respect the geography of our set. We're trying to sell an illusion that this space is real. So in order to do that, we have to respect it, and we have to say, okay, well, the actual real things in the room all need to be here, and then the not real things need to be there. So we treat it like it's a real space, even though we're dividing it into real and unreal. So a little behind the scenes just to show a little perspective. You know, we had our walls here, our big faux beam overhead and all that stuff. We had a really great production designer for this project. So there you go, that's that. And then for the last example I have here is part of that same ad campaign. So we had a kitchen scene, and the budget didn't allow for every single scene to have an Unreal scene built for it. The time that we would have to spend to do that was too high. So we augmented some of our scenes. We did, okay, well, we'll do plates for this. So I went into my backyard and I shot these plates just one weekend. And we put these plates up on the wall outside our windows. You can see, like, we have just this L-shaped set. We have a little return wall over there. It allowed us to, there was going to be a dining room table over here. We could point, I don't know if that's based on where we were, more than 180 degrees, and we could see everything. Everything outside the windows was projected on the wall. Lost my connection again, so one moment. There we go. There it is. When it comes to virtual production, we have control over what goes on the wall and where. So these were video plates, and we can just scale them, move them around wherever we want. We can even add a little blur to them if we needed to kind of dull them a little bit, and which we did. So you just kind of move things around to make it work. And then when we'd move a shot, if it didn't look right, we could easily tweak it. And then the kitchen island, that was just a nice little touch. She had a little business in the front there, and I don't think I have that actual clip on here, unfortunately. But there it is. You can see more clearly where the division between those two are. So that's kind of it for the examples I wanted to show. But yeah, thank you. I'd love to, if anyone has any questions about it. I know that was just sort of rattling through this particular case. But if anyone has any questions about practical sets and blending of them or anything like that.
Where you've got these walls, the physical set, is it literally touching the LED screen? Or is it a few inches in front or feet in front?
It all depends on what it is that we're trying to do. So generally, it's a few feet in front. We have enough space in this particular stage that we can put a few feet in front. That helps us to get our lights in too, because we want the light direction to look right. And if the wall's too close and we need to shoot through a window, then you don't have room for that. But we can get pretty close. In fact, we've had them as close as a few inches for. Well, in the case of the step, thank you, that actually was basically touching. We may have put a little foam on the backside so it couldn't actually touch. And nobody's actually trying to step on it. So, yeah.
Testing. Okay. Talking about when you said you filmed in your backyard,
yeah.
As far as, like, what did you use to film that? Like, I'm guessing that the lens choice is not really crucial, like, 'cause
right. Well, in that case, I mean, I have a Komodo that's my own. That's not what we shot the spots with.
Likewise.
Komodo. Nice. I think it's a great camera.
Yeah.
We shot this spot with the Monstro 8Ks, but I had a Komodo and I wanted to do it over the weekend. So I took some of the lenses that we were going to use, and I brought them home with me, and I just set it up, and that's it. I just recorded at 6K. We didn't need all that resolution, but I knew we'd want to scale it and move it. Oh, the focal length. I don't remember, but it was probably somewhere around 28 or 35. That was the Sigma Cine set that we were using. I generally, for plates, I try to get as close to what I think the focal length is going to be, but a little wider. If it's too wide, then the lens distortions don't line up and things aren't going to look right. So, yeah. I think at 28 is a great focal length for plates like that as a general purpose.
Can you talk a little bit about the impact of having to do more pre-production with it? Like, what kind of lighting do you have to do in Unreal? How involved is that process?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, let's say the garage scene, for example. I did a lighting plot that dictated where the light was coming from, and I did that before the artist started working on the scene. And he used that as a reference. A lot of the initial lighting for the Unreal scene is left up to the artist. and then we'll review it, sometimes even by putting it on the wall and as like just a test day or a pre-light day. And then we'll check and we'll make tweaks. That particular artist was very good in Blender. I mean, he's also good in Unreal, but his preference was Blender. And so he would use Blender to kind of get the lighting realistic and what he thinks it should look like, and then he would port that over to Unreal when the time was right. That's generally how it goes. And actually on that note, yesterday in my talk, I was asked a similar question about pre-production. I think I might have misspoken. I think I said that the pre-production timeline was like 7 or 8 weeks. After I was thinking about it later, it was actually quite a bit less. It was 7 or 8 weeks like on the calendar, but the actual time spent was closer to around 2 to 3 weeks probably. But that's what he would have been doing in that time, is he's lighting and then we're iterating from there. So yeah.
Fantastic.
Great.
Thank
you.
you, Austin.
Yeah.
Thank
All
you,
right.
everyone, for coming by.
Thank
I'll
you.
take this from you.
All right.